The Team Never Quit podcast is proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. And if you're in the market for a car or for a house, Navy Federal has the perfect tools to make that process so easy. Go check out NavyFederal.org today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Team Never Quit podcast. As always, thank you guys for listening and watching, and please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you like to support the show. So today, before we get to our special guest, let's kick it off with our weekly Patreon question. What we've got this week: have you ever participated in a talent show?
I always wanted
That's a great question.
Yeah, I always wanted to. And I was too scared when it came down to it. I chickened out.
Have you?
Not me, no.
I have. I've been in one. Yeah, I play. Yeah, for sure.
What'd you do?
I played an angel,
Oh my gosh.
and there was the rest of the crew was the band. Have you ever seen Back to the Future?
Yeah.
When they do Johnny Be Good and
Yeah.
doing all that. Yeah. So the band played that, and then it went into Earth Angel right after that, and I happened to be that dude.
How old were you?
Was it 6th grade, 7th grade, or something like that?
Yeah, I was training you for being in the Navy, right?
How about that, yeah.
You do the cruise videos.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, the skits.
If you can live through something like that. What about you?
I have. Me and some of my baseball friends back in middle school once did a fake synchronized swimming
Do you remember
routine.
No.
Did you have nose plugs in?
Where was this
No,
at?
it was-
I should know. I didn't hear about this.
I mean, this was in definitely middle school. No, it might have been freshman year of high school.
I'm definitely there.
Yeah.
And
Did you know about this?
yeah, no, it was a group of us. We always stayed back. We were in yearbook together, so we didn't really do much in yearbook, but practice for this routine. So last class of the day, all of us would just be working on our routine and ended up killing it. I mean, we did so good.
I'm proud of
How
you.
did we not know this as his parents?
I think you might have kept that from me on
We
purpose.
even, we had a backdrop and everything.
What
we
was
had
the backdrop?
water.
Oh my gosh. I
All right.
do not know how that slipped by us.
Yeah. All right. Good question.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Mack. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You betcha. So to introduce you to everybody on the team, man, we're going to back it up a little bit. I'd like to know where you were born.
Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So out on the coast near the Navy base up there.
Are you a brat?
Nope. My dad was like a draftee, did 2 years, got out.
Oh, in Vietnam.
Yep, he didn't go to Vietnam though. He went to Okinawa.
Okay.
But, I was right in between Pease Air Base, which was a SAC base back then, had nukes, and the submarines right across the river. That's where Portsmouth Navy Prison was. You always hear about it, McHale's Navy. It was right there.
That's probably one of the most classified places around because of the subs and the nukes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But, I'll tell you, years ago, we used to take our boats back there. There's a creek, Chauncey Creek, back behind the Navy base there, and you can go behind the sub pens. If they don't want you there, they'll
let you know.
They'll let you know. But you could pretty much go up and down, run the line. It was pretty cool.
Brothers and sisters?
One brother, younger, 5 years younger. He still lives up there with my mom.
Oh, okay.
And,
Your father passed?
Yeah, he passed away in like 06.
Okay. All right, military background?
Just
Just for me,
Just your dad on the
yeah. Well,
draft side?
yeah, he had my dad doing that. My grandfather was a CB in World War II, island
Oh,
hopping.
nice. Yeah.
He used to. I didn't really take advantage of his knowledge because I would make those little model airplanes and stuff, and I had some like a P-38 Lightning or something like that, and he just gushed over. He's like, "Oh, I used to build airstrips for these things." I'm like, "Okay," didn't really care until he's much older, and then I realized they were, doing the island hopping all the way to Japan.
They're the first ones.
Yeah,
Seabees, man. When they build, they fight.
yeah,
It was a blessing to have them jokers around.
yeah,
We had them in our last push, and we carry a couple of them with us, man. They're amazing,
yeah.
for sure.
Everything from building showers,
Anything.
mess halls, to improving your lot.
Anything.
Life, right? Like this table. The CBs will put something like this together for you, and
oh wow.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
God, they were so great to have, especially when we go in somewhere where it's not developed, and we're just sleeping on the ground, and they show up and they can build anything.
Do they still exist?
Absolutely, 100% they exist.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And it's CVs. You can't miss it when you pull up on their unit. There'll be a huge B outside of it with an M4 in his hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they fight?
Yeah, they damn sure do fight. Hell yeah, they'll fight. I remember one time we were reminded of Sniper Overwatch. We're getting off in a rabbit hole, man, but they were getting shot out there in their construction vehicles. Dozers, all that stuff, pushing everything around, taking sniper fire, getting shot at. They're in there shooting back and still, Chivis.
Yeah.
They're a real unit, man. They're awesome.
Gosh,
Not
well,
getting
it
enough
sounds
credit.
like a cool place to grow up.
Yeah, no, it was. You know, I mean, you got to remember, I grew up in the '70s, right? Late '60s, early '70s, and there was no internet, no cell phones, and I like to say that we were free-range teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, wherever we could go on a 10-speed bike, you know, that's where we went. I had about a range of about 20 miles.
Yeah.
You know, that we could do in a day, and my mother, heck, I was out with my mother last year at one of the areas, and I said, yeah, we used to ride our bikes here, and she's like, what? This is up in Maine. What do you? It's like, yeah, it's an hour ride.
Oh
It's no
my
big deal.
gosh.
But she had no idea. You know, the street lights come on, you come home, and
dark
that was
30,
kind
right?
of it. Yeah,
Don't let that light hit you.
yeah.
I remember them days. So when you were growing up, how'd you hear about, other than your father, did you have military, did you want to serve, or were you sports? Or?
No, it was the Vietnam War was going on, right? And so every night, you didn't have the 24-hour news cycle. You had the, 6 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news, whatever. And so the Vietnam War was on every night, with the body count and, the names of the people and died and such. But there was always Huey helicopters zipping across the screen, right? And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And the funny thing is you remember the TV guide?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So instead of the guide on TV, you open up the little
Flip it. Mm-hmm.
So there was an Army, like an insert, so I filled it out. I sent it in. I was like 13, maybe 14. And the recruiter took the time to answer me back, sent me a big envelope full of stickers and patches and stuff. And he's like, hey, look, I see you want to be a helicopter pilot. You got a few years to go, write me back when you get a little older. Here's some stickers in the meantime. And then I kind of forgot about it until I was in high school. And I was getting ready to go to college. I was like that senior year, picking a school, had a guy that was going to be my roommate, and I just knew that I would just party. That's all I was going to do, right? I was going to fail. So another friend of
Some
mine,
of us go there for that.
well, right?
You know what I'm talking about? Some of us go there for that very reason.
I have some very good friends that did exactly what I would have done. And instead, I went to the Army recruiter with another friend, and I ended up as an aviation mechanic, which is what I did for 9 years, and really enjoyed it. I was supposed to go to Germany my first assignment, ended up in Korea. You know how the military can be, right? Oh, you want to go to Germany? Here's Korea. But that's
We got a spot kind of like it. Kind of like it.
It's a
We'll put you,
lot like
we'll
it,
put you there.
Yeah,
They do that.
Funny.
yeah.
So the Vietnam guys, every time I think of y'all, or them, excuse me, that helicopter, like their war. Mm-hmm. I mean, those two things go together.
Well, it's like I was doing an interview years ago, so probably like in 2002, 2003 timeframe, and I said, in Vietnam you had the Huey, it was synonymous with that, and in Afghanistan it was the Chinook, because essentially the Blackhawks were limited to down by Kandahar and up, Mazar-i Sharif, everything in the middle, they really couldn't do, it was all Chinooks. And so when people go, why are they using Chinooks for that? Well, because it's the only thing to get there, kind of thing.
So you went in wanting to be an aviation, a pilot.
Yeah.
Because enlisted, let me ask you a question. So is it more beneficial to go in that way, to become an aircraft mechanic, to know your bird before you start flying it?
If you don't have anything else going for you, meaning you're not already a pilot, because, I went in and they call it high school to flight school, right? And that was some of the be all you can be commercials back then. It was like, you get out of high school and go to Army flight school, right? And I tried that, and the recruiter's like, oh, hold on here, Turbo, pump the brakes. It doesn't work quite that way. You don't have a college degree, you don't have any pilot's license, you got nothing going for you. How about you just join as an aircraft mechanic? You learn the culture, the lingo, you learn the aircraft, all that kind of stuff, and then you put in, and it's much easier. Now, that's twofold. Number one, it was true, but it also was true that he didn't get credit for officers.
Oh,
He only got credit
he was
for,
trying to.
Yeah, so he
didn't lie.
No, he didn't lie, and actually it was good advice because I did 9 years. I made it to the rank of Staff Sergeant, E6, and put in for flight school. I was going to get out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to put in for flight school, or I'm going to get out. right? So if I get accepted, I stay. If not,
I think a lot of guys do that, right? Like, hey, man, if I don't make it, I was just going to get out anyways.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, my stepson's doing that right now. So he's in infantry at Fort Campbell. He's putting in right now. But
is it still called Fort Campbell? Or they switched the names on that one?
I think it's still Campbell.
Okay, cool.
I think it's still Campbell.
I can find that one then. Yeah, I can find that one then.
I mean, I can still say I've been to Fort Bragg. I've been to Fort Rucker because that's what they were when I went there.
Right? They've changed hood.
Oh, what is it now?
I don't know what Liberty, I think. I don't know.
I think that's Bragg. Cavazos or something. But it worked out good, because when I went to flight school, I learned in Hueys, right? Because just before I got there, like say a year before, they did away with the original trainer, which was a TH-55. It was a little orange two-seater, and they went with the Hueys because they were transitioning it over to the Blackhawk. And so they're like, all right, what are we going to do with all these Hueys? Well, we'll teach people to fly in them, right? So here I am studying, academics. And all of my roommate, my stick buddy, all that stuff, they had to study like aircraft systems, the electrical system, the transmission, the engines. I already knew it. So I could focus on other topics like aeromedical, aviation regulations, that kind of stuff. So what that meant is I had an easier time academically getting through. So
That's huge.
I was able to come out as a number one candidate.
Nice.
Out of class of like 73.
Dude, in the military, that's huge. That's like having half the school already in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew a couple of guys like that. They already had that skill set, like the medical guys do. Mm-hmm. What is it about the Hueys? Is it just easy to fly, maneuverable, tough as shit? I mean, what's the deal on that?
All the above. I mean, that thing is, if you look at anything new, like you watch some kind of movie, right, where a guy comes into enemy fire and he's getting hit, you hear the ding 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 ding, and he's just sitting there the whole time, right? Well, that's because there's nothing to that damn bird, right? It's a little sheet metal and an engine, and it can go without hydraulics and everything, right? You do that to a Black Hawk, and all the little black boxes start taking hits, and then the aircraft is very difficult to fly. Same thing with a Chinook, and it does well in the movies to see that the hero gets to stay in the air the whole time. But if you look at a lot of the medals of honor in Vietnam, like Major Brady, he was a medevac guy. He had 3 aircraft shot out from under him, I believe, before he got back with the 4th to get somebody out and he got the Medal of Honor for that. But that's because the aircraft got shot down and there was enough aircraft in the area. They just picked him up, brought him back. He jumped in another helicopter. And
man, that's
so if a Huey went down like that in Vietnam, because now if you are in a helicopter crash, you're probably going to die. But back then, was it just so armored that they weren't dying?
Not at all. And here's the thing: if you ever look at, I was just thinking about this the other day, the Battle of the Hydrang Valley. We Were Soldiers Once and Young. They made a movie that, right? Yeah. So there's video of the helicopter.
Sergeant Major Plumley, all that.
Yeah. Nice day, Sergeant Major.
Yeah, you know what kind of, yeah.
But the thing is you see these Hueys coming in, and they get like the tail rotor shot out or the drive shaft, and they start spinning and they just crash. Right? Those guys are dead. It just depends on how you hit. I mean, I was shot down in early 2002, and I'm still here. So it just depends on kind of the circumstances.
Where you get hit.
Yeah. Where you get hit, when you get hit, because. So, the title of my book is Razor 03. So I had Razor 03 and Razor 04, my 2 aircraft. And then Razor 01 and 02 with a QRF. So I get shot down, they get launched. They head into the same spot that I was in, which is its whole other story. But they get hit with an RPG as well, just like I did. Except I got hit at the top of a hill and was able to dive down. They got hit on approach, and they kind of pancaked in. They just couldn't go anywhere. So it just depends on when you get hit, really, and where.
Okay, so let's back it up a little bit. You were going 9 years as enlisted, and then your package got picked up. Yep. Flight school is where?
Yeah, Fort Rucker, Alabama, which I think is Novacell now. Right, he's a Medal of Honor winner from Vietnam. Yeah, so I did that. That's about 8 to 9 months long. So back then, you did candidate school as a walk, warrant officer candidate.
That's right, you had
the whole time, right? And now they do like the first, 4 weeks as a walk, and then they become a W1. So the warrant officer ranks, there's W1 through CW5. And, You won't see a lot of CW5s, you know, the unicorn of the species. But you know, so flight school though.
That's true, right?
Yeah,
I've heard that.
yeah. I mean, I still go through gates, you know, with my retired ID, and I'll look at it and I go, "Is this real?" Like what?
Yeah.
It's like a 5-star general, right? There's not a lot of them walking
You
around.
just don't see a lot, yeah. Unless you're at Fort Campbell in the 160th, then you can't swing a dead cat without hitting one.
Right.
But you know, the rest of the military,
That's where they keep them.
Yeah, yeah.
So eventually, at what point do you become a Night Stalker? Because I don't know how that works. Is that like a special forces
Yeah, we're
thing,
good to that.
or
Yeah, so it's special operations, and I did. Let's see, I did Hunter Army Airfield for a couple of years. I did a tour in Korea, and then I taught at Fort Rucker for a little bit, and then I put in for the 160th. And it's an assessment process. You know, you apply, you do a selection. You know, it's about a week long selection. You know, a PT test, swim test, nothing like the stuff you did, but. It's not very pleasant for a pilot to do. And then they give you a flight test, a bunch of psychology tests and things like that. And then they decide, you know, they kind of weed you out before you even get there.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember the percentages, but, you know, a good 25-30% are weeded out right up front. And they just don't get, you know, brought in. And then of the people that come to Fort Campbell to assess, it's like 75% get through. It's not like, you know, terrible. I mean, the idea is you want them to get in, and then you still could kick them out in training, you know, if they didn't fit, you know, and that's the thing. So you're looking for, you know, when I joined the 160th, you had to have like 2,000 hours of pilot and command time.
Is that the minimum?
Yeah. Now, it isn't anymore. They're having some troubles now recruiting.
Oh.
So, you know, and they've got enough people, because you can stay there as a warrant officer as long as you want, and you're productive. So if, you know, you can essentially take some more junior guys, because you've got like this other group of, you know, senior mentors that can kind of keep everything on track, right? Because, you know, it's a 2-pilot aircraft, all of them. So, you know, you have a junior guy in the right seat and a senior guy in the left seat, and it's not too bad. But
So they recruit from every type of helo platform, or is it? Yeah, it is, right?
yeah. So, and it doesn't depend. So, like, we used to have the OH-58 KWs, the Kiowa Warrior, right? It's a little OH-58. They don't have those anymore, but they used to have a gun version of it, you know, with a 50 cal and rocket pods, and I think a Hellfire. Those guys would usually assess for the regiment to be in the guns, right? So the 160th is based. It's got so there's Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Fort Stewart, Georgia, and JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord, out near Seattle. And these are the locations, and then there's a couple other special mission units. But those each have, well, Fort Campbell has the 1st and 2nd Battalion, right? So 1st Battalion has Little Birds. That's a little egg-shaped, like Magnum PI, right? So they've got a version that's armed, and they've got a version that's just assault, right? So they call them MHs is the assault version, and AH is the attack version. And then the Blackhawks, you've got an attack version, which is called the DAP, the Direct Action Penetrator, my favorite guys other than Chinook guys. And then you've got the lift Blackhawks, and then you got Chinooks that do mostly what we call heavy assault. And then the other battalions have Blackhawks and Chinooks, but no Little Birds. So Little Birds are only at Fort Campbell.
This is a lot of fun to fly.
The Little Bird, it's actually a lot of work.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not qualified in it.
When they get online and stand up and pivot the way they do, and that sucker takes off, man, they just look like they have a lot of fun.
Well, I tell you, you know, Black Hawk Down, right? That was our aircraft, our crews that were filming it, right? The regiment supported it, and every once in a while I'll watch that. I'm not really paying attention, and I'll see, you know, they get the pro word to go, Irene,
yeah,
and they pick up, the lead turns to the side so he can see everybody, and as soon as he turns, they go, and I was like, wow, they got that. Oh, it's our guys.
That was the sexiest shit, man. When y'all did, when I was watching that movie intently, but when y'all lifted up like that, it was good stuff.
So when you're a pilot like that, do you get qualified in multiple aircraft, or you're just...
Yeah, so where I got off track, so typically a gun guy will go be a gun guy, but sometimes they don't need any gun guys, but we still need pilots. So often the Apache and the KW guys would come be Chinook pilots, which was good. They actually made really good Chinook pilots, because regular conventional Chinook pilots at the time, I mean, now they fly the F model, which is almost as sophisticated as a G. I mean almost, not even close, but it's got some of the features. But back a couple of years ago, they were flying Delta models, right, which had what we call steam gauges in there, right? So you get the little circular gauges with all the needles and stuff, and the Apaches and the KWs all had what's called a multifunction display, an MFD, right? It's a TV screen with keys around it, right? And so everything's done through data pads and stuff like that. So they convert really well to an MH-47, which is nice, And we used to get Cobra pilots too, and they were fun to teach because in a Chinook there's no slope limit. Like you can actually, when I say no slope limit, the aircraft itself will tell you when you can't go anymore. So, like let's say a lot of aircraft, 6-10 degrees of cross slope. I could do 22, 23 degrees.
So I'm landing sideways.
So you're landing, kind of like this, right? And with the Cobra guys, they're used to a helicopter that's no wider than this table is, the one table. And so they've got a slope limit of like 2 degrees.
Is that what pulled you out?
47.
It was Blackhawk. HH6.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Off the mountain? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Blackhawk.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's so scary to me. Isn't your cousin an Apache pilot?
She is. Well, she's retired now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his cousin was, I don't know how many women are Apache pilots, but
not a lot of them.
Yeah, she's a little badass.
She is, for sure. How long is 160th training again? You said it's a week that's the assessment.
That's the assessment,
right?
Yeah, no, for training, you're talking about almost a year.
Yeah.
So you get in, once you're accepted, you come in and you do first what's called basic skills, combat skills, right? So this is your shooting, first aid, hand-to-hand combat, that kind of stuff. Then you go to the enlisted guys go off to do log PT and land navigation, stuff like that. Whereas the pilots then go to flight training. So now you learn how to do things.
Eat cake, knife and fork, stuff like that, right?
Well, they're yelling at you. They're yelling at you the whole time.
Yeah, it's tough work, sir.
It's like, you want some more vanilla frosting there?
Yeah.
I'm not a Black Hawk pilot, no. But
I can get after you boys quick.
Oh yeah,
we got history.
Yeah. And so you do that, and then you go off to your airframe specific, right? So the Black Hawk guys go fly Black Hawks, the Chinook guys do Chinooks.
Oh, they don't.
Yeah.
Well, the navigation is all done on Little Birds, so everybody has to fly Little Birds for that. Okay. So that's why I say I'm not qualified in it. I've flown it, but right. I can't take one.
So like the trainer, when the fixed wing guys, when they go in, they all have the 38 or whatever. The same thing.
Those lines. But the thing is that it's very economical to use these, and that's what they do. And then you go, so you get your aircraft specifics, right, where you learn the aircraft itself. Because remember, you might not even be a Chinook pilot, right? You could be a Cobra guy. So you learn how to fly the damn thing, then you do it at night, and then you go off to mission tasks, right? How to do fast rope, aerial gunnery, air refueling, terrain following radar. Then you go out to use all that stuff in the environment. So then you go desert mountain, you go over water, you go out to a ship.
What's the most difficult? What was the most difficult for you then?
I think honestly the air refueling can be kind of tough.
That's what I was going to ask.
When
that's pretty sketch, right?
I've had some guys, customers that get on board. That's what we call the SEALs, the Rangers, and the Delta guys, customers. So when they get on board, sometimes they'll be like, "Hey, the customers."
They got all kinds of names for us. Can't believe it.
But they'll come up front,
because
in the Chinook you get this what's called the companionway, right? So the two pilots are sitting here, and in between is what's called the troop commander seat or the jump seat, which can be up or it could be down. And a lot of times the troop commander or whoever's in charge back there will come up. He'll be on a headset and they'll watch. We were doing a air refueling in Yemen, and you go up the Red Sea, I think, and it's in between the two land masses between Eritrea and Yemen, and you get a lot of turbulence out of that, right? And so it's pretty nasty because the drogue is just this big parachute that's looks like the size of that white light thing there,
like an umbrella.
Yeah, but it's hollow.
Hollow, yeah.
And it's like a cone shape, right? So when the probe goes in it, it guides it into the center, and then you hope it hits.
Is that a magnetic connection?
Nope, it's a spring. So it's like these little grabbers.
Is that more sketch for you or for the guy who's carrying the fuel?
I think if they're watching us, they're probably scared. But no, it's for us. It's tough.
When the weather gets kicked, when it starts kicking on y'all from the bottom, and then in the storms too, when y'all have to do that.
Oh yeah.
Because if they punched that in the wrong spot, full of fuel, y'all would both just go up in flames, right?
Well, you could, yeah. But typically, what happens, the biggest cause of an air refueling incident is the drogue. Because it's a big hose, right? It comes out, and you're actually only 19 feet, the rotors from the tanker. Right? I mean, you're close.
That's crazy.
And this thing is going up and down like this. So you come up on it, and it's moving around, and you're looking at the wing, because the wing goes like this, and the hose follows it, right? And then when it steadies, you move to contact, and you go now, right? And boom. And if you don't, then you just say miss, you back off, and you wait, and you do it again, right?
Because they just keep going, right?
Yeah, you could, yeah. Yeah, they're doing 110, 120 miles an hour or so. And
So they're
Over
on
the
a
water?
They're on a fixed
over
wing.
the water. Yeah,
They're on a fixed wing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
C-130.
my gosh.
So I've done air refueling as low as 100 feet off the coast of Iraq, and that was interesting. Yeah, I actually was behind one time in Afghanistan. He flew into a mountain. Yeah, it's in the book.
Oh my
Check it out.
gosh.
Called the tanker in the mountain.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But on nights where it's not rough, it's actually a lot of fun.
You're doing this at night.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and in bad weather.
And I mean in bad weather.
Yeah.
You can't believe the stuff we've come up with to make things work. That one, when you do that for the first time, I was on 17 the first time that happened. It's unbelievable.
So this is because I don't know. I haven't read your book yet, and so I don't know military in general a lot. Okay, for the 160th, are the Night Stalkers a portion of that, or is all 160th Night Stalkers?
All the 160th Night Stalkers.
Okay.
So that's the nickname, if you will.
Okay.
Because we fly at night. And
Stalk your ass down and kill you.
we always say that, the only time we've ever lost anybody to enemy fire was in the day. That's why we like to fly at night.
So interesting. So how many Night Stalker pilots are there at one time in a combat zone?
Depends. There's not that many aircraft. So I think there's only 75 Chinooks total in the 3 battalions. And some of those, it's not divided up equally because there's also a training company at Fort Campbell. Let's see, there was like 300 people when I joined the regiment in 95. Now there's like 4,000. I mean, it's big.
That's not a lot.
No, it's not in the grand scheme of things.
You're talking about all of us, though, right there.
Yeah,
Check.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So let's get into some of the missions that you were involved in. What are some of the most memorable that were in the Afghanistan-Iraq war?
Well, I'm kind of like Forrest Gump.
Okay.
In that
You got lucky like that, huh?
I seem to fall into everything.
That's good.
Right. So,
God, if you could find one of them, you'd want to follow them around.
I flew. I flew. You see the movie 12 Strong?
Yes.
With,
Horseman.
Chris Hemsworth, right? Mm-hmm. So I flew them in, and I was depicted in the movie, but Chris Hemsworth was supposed to play me, but he's too short.
It's tough business, man. It's tough business, bro.
Actually, I got a picture. I got a picture of him next to me at the premiere, and he's like this freaking tall.
Yeah.
So
Oh
that's
my
the
gosh.
joke.
I've heard good things about him.
Oh, he's really nice.
I've heard great things about him, yeah.
Yeah, but I did that. Operation Anaconda. That's where Britt Slavinsky got his Medal of Honor, and John Chapman.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a longer. You might want to segue into that one in a minute. But,
okay.
You flew him in there on that?
What's that?
What was your job on that mission?
So that's where the title of my book, Razor 03. So I was the first aircraft shot down on Takur Ghar when Neil Roberts fell out of my aircraft.
Oh wow.
Neil fell out of your helicopter.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then it's a whole. We'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's a long conversation.
Okay.
But so there was that, and let's see. I flew into the embassy when we reopened it in 2001. So it was December 2001. This Afghan guy. So the Taliban melts away, right? So General Dostum is up in Mazar-e Sharif. He says, "You know what? We're going to Kabul," and the command where I was up in Task Force Dagger, which was up in Uzbekistan, K2, they're going, "Don't let him do it," right? To the SF commander. And he's like, "I can't stop him." As a matter of fact, we delivered a gator to him. He drove his gator into
My gosh.
Little garden tractor. But so once they did, this guy had been watching the embassy since the Soviet Union invaded. Like, we left, and you go in there, and there were like desks and tables that still had ashtrays and magazines and newspapers from the time.
Oh, just like they left it.
Like, the Taliban never went in there. They just left it alone. Either they didn't know where it was, or they, who knows why.
Yeah,
but this young kid watched it his entire life until he got older, and he's like, "Hey, I present you with the U.S. Embassy." So we flew in there with General Franks, who's the CENTCOM commander.
Tommy?
Yeah. Funny thing, I had two man-pads fired at me, right? The heat-seeking missiles. So here I've got General Franks on board, his wife, General Harrell, and associated strap hangers. And I told CENTCOM we should go at night. And they're like, no, the Taliban's gone. Right? This is December 2001. The Taliban is gone. Right? I think we saw it different. But, I flew them in there, and the missile came right between me and Chalk 2, and the flares come out. Like in the movies, it's like, hit the flares! It happens too fast for that. It's all automatic. And so we come flying into the embassy, we're just hauling ass, and they're all on a headset, right? They're all listening in, and they don't know we're being shot at, because the conversation in the cockpit is, missile came through us, descending, speeding up, accelerating, new time on target, blah, 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 blah. And they just think we're giving them a ride, because we're doing this. We're getting as low as we can to get in the swales and the stream beds and stuff like that, to try to keep them from getting a lock on us.
How are you staying calm in this moment and not, where the missiles are coming?
Well, it's funny, because really it comes down to training, I think, and selection, right? I mean, it's a whole process of what they call stress inoculation, right? That's why you go to SEER school, right? To try to get you used to that kind of junk. But the funny thing is so I'm at the premiere for 12 Strong, and I'm talking to Jerry Bruckheimer, right? So he's the producer of the movie, and I said, Jerry, I hope you did us good on this, because every movie I've ever seen with special ops pilots, as soon as they get shot at, they go, we're getting shot at, and they run into each other and they die. And he's like, nah. He goes, I think you'll like this. He goes, we're not making a documentary. It's a movie, right? So there's some different artistic license there. But yeah, so we go in there, and I went the next day, and I talked to General Harrell, and I said, hey, sir, how was the ride in, And he's like, man, I had no idea we were getting shot at. I said, yeah, damn SA-7, and he's like, but it didn't sound like that. You guys sounded like you were ordering biscuits, And I'm like, well, that's what we do, sir.
That's the one you want right there.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But I talk about that story, and I say that when I took off out of there. So Kabul is a very sprawling, city, right? It's not tall, but it is, it's spread out. And I get another missile fired at me, right? Same thing, comes right between me and Chalk 2. So now I drop down, instead of the little creek beds, I've got, buildings to kind of, the problem is they've all got TV antennas. Remember the old aerials, that used to be out there?
So this is during the day or night?
This is day.
Okay.
Right? Because the Taliban isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And
that's coming from a guy who's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. So I'm down on the rooftops. I like to say I was dragging my wheels through the antennas, and you know what's in front of me? Kites. Hundreds and hundreds of kites. Bright colored kites with long tails, right? Because the Taliban had banned them, right? So everybody shaved their beards and flew kites, right? So I like to say I see this little red kite. I'm doing 150, 160 miles an hour. I turn right, the kite goes right. I turn left, the kite goes left. And the problem is, if you hit the string on these things, it could wrap around the rotors, and it could be a problem. It could cut the tubes that control the blades. And I couldn't quite miss it. It got wrapped around my landing gear. I looked down, and there's this little kid. He's hanging on. I'm doing 180
My
now.
gosh.
And he kept up for like 2 miles.
Are you kidding me?
I'm kidding.
Joke.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It was like a half mile. Bro. It was a half mile.
That sucker wouldn't give up.
No. But it was so interesting, because then we get back to Bagram.
Like, you go out flying for him now. I was like, hey, I bet there's a kite out here. I'm going to catch this sucker. Watch.
And I told we had to go back, right? So you remember Flight of the Intruder? Did you ever see that?
Of course.
Right? So they go downtown in Sam City. They're going to drop bombs in North Vietnam.
City,
and the bombs don't drop. right? And they get, shot at, and they're like, holy crap, the bombs didn't go. And the guy's like, oh, boom, boom, boom. And he fixes it. And he says, well, they'd never expect us twice. And they go back around and they do it again, right? So my wingman comes up and he's like, Al, he's Puerto Rican. He's very animated. And he's so funny. And he's like, we can't.
Dude, when they get fired up, there's nothing better when Puerto Rican gets fired up, man. You can't. They go off.
Because he plays it up anyway.
Sure.
And now he's all excited. And so I said, hey, Willie, we're going to go back and get him, And he's like, no, are you kidding me? And I said, they'll never expect us twice. And he hadn't seen the movie yet. And he's like, oh, you're crazy, right? And it was like a couple months later, he calls me up. We were back home, and he's like, I saw the movie. Yeah, I get it.
And the line was, hey, it worked in the movie. We're doing it.
There we go. Let's see, what else did I do?
Every military person will throw that out. Hey, it's from a movie. It works.
Yeah, we did. So that first year, obviously, was Anaconda. And then I don't know that you even know this, but I was part of Red Wings, what we called Earned Respect, actually. And I'm the one that planned your rescue.
I appreciate that.
So oh my gosh!
Thank you.
That.
I appreciate that.
I know the Air Force got the credit. Spanky and Skinny there.
Skinny,
right?
yeah.
But it was
funny.
Yesterday. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll keep in touch with him.
Oh well, let me tell you. So I'm at an air show down in Virginia Beach with the promoter that's going to do the air show at our place, right? And I'm telling him, I planned the whole the rescue. I did all the fires and the whole thing, And he's like, oh really? I know the Air Force guys. And he dials them up before I can say anything. And now I'm thinking, I saw the Air Force Times article. This guy's going to take full credit. I'm going to look like an ass, right? And he's like, hey, I got the Chinook pilot that planned the whole thing. And he's like, buy that son of a bitch a beer. Buy it right now. And like, oh, thank God.
I keep in touch with Spank. I never got to know Skinny very well, but
I didn't know him. They were based out of Kandahar.
Right. They got the call,
and they came up, and I was pissed because we were doing we were practicing for the dignified transfer, right, of the aircrew that we brought back, and I was pallbearer for Trey Ponder, who was he was my NCO, and so he and I used to sit this far apart, in our desk.
You and Trey?
Yeah.
I never got a chance to meet him. I know his family though.
Yeah, Leslie and the girls, but so we're out there, get like cases of water in the coffins, and we're to simulate weight. And the captain comes up, Mark Kappelman. He's like, Al, come with me to the talk. I was like, sir, come on, we're doing this thing, right? And he's like, no, we got a survivor. It's like, oh crap, okay. So somebody took my place, went into the planning area. It was a guy named Tom, was the head PJ. I think it was an alias. I don't even know if it's a real name. But he's, we got this guy. We had your bloodshed number, your embidder beacon, I think. And the guy had walked into, was that Camp Blessing or something like that, one of the little posts out there. And so they're like, we're going to send the 60s in to get him. And I was like, I threw a fit. I was like, no way are they picking him up. And like, oh, it's our terrorist field. You'll never fit. I'm like, are you kidding me? I can put it right there. No problem. And then they go, but Al, we get the thunderstorms every night, so you got about a 20-minute window to get in there, and we're still missing people, and we got to bring more Rangers in. He goes, the 60 can't do that, so you got a choice. Either you pick them up or the 60 does, but that means no more guys are going in that night. There's no choice there, right? I mean, so I go, all right, but I'm planning the whole damn thing. And the 60 guys are like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they stripped those things down.
Down to nothing.
There was nothing in them. Because I was like, there's no way you got the performance to get in there. They go, we stripped it down. No guns, no nothing.
Rotors and fuel.
Yeah, they dumped fuel right before.
Yeah.
I'll never forget looking down the mountain and seeing that thing coming up.
For sure.
They what?
They get some cojones.
Yeah.
They do.
My gosh.
Oh, dude, Spanky's got some balls that clank. I mean, where he landed that thing, where he dropped that bird in there to get me.
Yeah.
I've never really delved into his head about that, man. But from my perspective, where I was sitting, it was sketch.
The biggest problem they had actually was power. Yeah. So when you look at the Bin Laden raid, for example, right? The Stealth Hawk that came in there didn't have enough power for the altitude, and they fell through, right? Because the rotors droop, and there we go. And that was the biggest fear that we had for them, was that they wouldn't have enough power to land. Taking off's not so bad. Yeah. But
we're way up there.
Just for the listeners that don't know the story, there's like a ledge. It's terraced mountain. So there's like, maybe 15, 20 feet of flooring, and then it drops.
Right.
And there's a sheer, like a wall on the
6
other
feet,
side.
maybe.
Yeah.
Tall.
So
And the other thing you don't know is that, so Red Wings was supposed to be, so we had two different versions of Chinooks, right? We had the Echo models and the Delta models. The Deltas are older. They're lighter by about 1,500 pounds because they have less capability, right? So they could carry more cargo. And the idea is that we had 7 of them, and they would all carry the Marines, which was Red Wings. And I would assume the role of QRF because you only got a couple of SEALs, versus, 28 Marines or whatever. And so we were going to switch over at, I don't know, we'll call it 10 in the morning, right? I don't remember the exact time. But I get up, I get dressed, I go get my coffee, I walk into the talk, and there's like big screens like this everywhere, and everybody's, glued to these screens. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Right? Sit down next to the colonel. He's like, quiet. We launched the QRF. I'm like, I'm the QRF. He's like, no. Major Reich was already here, and obviously he was just approaching, so he definitely could have gotten the air sooner than me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So where are they going? He's like, we're calling it Thresher. It's this little logging area up at the top of the hill there. And sitting there drinking my coffee, I watch them come up. There's an A-10 overhead with an ISR feed. And you see, how FLIR, when there's heat, it blooms, right? So you see this big glow in the screen, meaning there's been an explosion. And then it comes down, and the helicopter's still there, and it kind of goes like this, and then it just sort of eats itself and falls down the side of the hill. So I lean over to the colonel and make sure I can be in the air in about 15 minutes, right, with the DevGru SEALs. He's like, go. So we run down there, and I'm hauling ass there. I'm doing the same thing they did. I'm doing 160, right, which is pretty damn fast in a helicopter in those mountains. And it's daylight, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do different? There's nowhere to land up there, And they ended up diverting us over to JBAD, so we could come up with a better plan, And yeah,
Ooh, I bet that pissed y'all off.
It did, and but I expected to be right back in the air, with more SEALs. And what they did is they decided to wait till dark. But we had these thunderstorms every night that I was talking about, right? And they'd come rolling through, and you almost couldn't fly in those things. And the older Delta models, they just had a handheld map, right? Guys, compare the terrain to the map, and that's what they're doing. In my aircraft, I had a little TV screen with a digital map, and these things called trend dots, these little dots that represent 30 seconds apiece. And whichever way I'm turning, the trend dots can go. So I can actually turn, without being able to see out the window in the rain, I can turn up, little valleys and stuff like that. It's pretty damn.
that is crazy.
Pucker.
I wonder.
That's nice to have.
But so I'm waiting to do that. And then somebody decided to go and just launch Red Wings early, right? So all the Delta model guys, and they didn't tell me that, right? So I'm sitting there waiting to go. And then I hear Chinooks. I run inside. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they go, oh, those are the Delta models. They're coming in. They're going to grab all the SEALs, and they're going to go start Red Wings. It's like, they're not going to make it past ABAD, right? Asadabad, because that's where the rain is. They go, I have a chance of getting through, but they don't, right? They just can't. And they took off and came back about 20 minutes later. Yeah, weather's too bad.
Is this same day?
Yeah.
This is same day.
Yeah.
Because then there was a couple of days where no aircraft tried going in, right? It was just the
No, we were there every day,
fighter
several times.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
So every day y'all tried to attempt.
Yeah, so every day we were, so the first night we get in there. So I actually asked the battalion commander to let me go back to Bagram. I was like, okay, look, we're not getting in tonight. Let me go back to Bagram. We'll sleep there. And I get all the tools of the trade, right? Satellite imagery, my planning tools, the computers. No, we're not, it wouldn't look right if we were gone. I'm like, but I can be much more effective, and I'm only 20 minutes away. And he's like, no, I'm staying here. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I've got an operator's manual, open it up with graphs, and charts. So I'm looking at the temperature, the thermometer. It's like, all right, well, it's 12,000 feet up there. It's 8,000 feet here. It should be this temperature. So I can take 18 people, right? Because we go low on gas. And then when I got up there, we were still too heavy. And I came up to a hover over a Thresher, and I started to settle. And I could feel...
What's that feel like?
it sucks because if we settle in there,
You can feel it though, right?
yeah, you fall through, and it's almost like being in a parachute when it drops on you.
Coming down the hill.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough we hadn't descended below the trees yet, and I was able to dive down away and kind of get my speed back up and rotor RPM, and then I dumped fuel and came back around and did that. It's like, okay, next time it's 16 guys.
Yeah, which one of you guys had a cheeseburger on the way in?
Yeah, who's got the extra batteries,
Right.
that kind of stuff. But we were doing that sometimes 2-3 times a night, and most nights we did it for almost 2 weeks. And I want to say there were nights we did one. Like I'd come around and the A-10s and the AC-130s would be overhead, and I'd say, hey, I'm in a rainstorm right now. What's it looking like on the target? And they'd say, oh, the target looks great. They're looking down through it, and I'm like, man, I got to get there, right? And there's only 3 ways into that area. If you come from the valley where Asadabad is, which is where the guys in Turbine 33 came from, you still have to get over a hill that's like 13,000 feet before you can drop into the valley or run the spine. The enemy knows that. Or you can go the long way around, in which this is what the 60s did, and you come in the low way and straight across to that terrace field. And then there's a third way to the west, but it always had clouds on it. And the only aircraft that could get through was my 2, right? Because we had a terrain following radar. But if I had the Delta models with me, I can't drag them through it, right? Because they'll be like, oh, we can't fall in. So the enemy knows you're coming from one of 2 ways, right? And if it weren't for the Rangers and the recce guys with the snipers, they took out quite a few.
Kept them busy.
Guys, yeah.
It was a perfect storm scenario in there.
Yeah, it was bad.
And you had everything to get into where you needed to be, except for that one. There was one thing for everybody. Everybody had one thing that kind of. That's why we were all there.
Yeah, all of the CSAR package. It feels like every division had some sort of hiccup. Like the Green Berets had, the thunderstorms were a big thing coming in over those mountains.
Well, you had the guys that were walking in because we couldn't, right? So they're like, well, we'll walk. We can't. If you can't fly, we'll walk.
Yeah.
All right,
They got beat to death.
It's like it's like Lord of the Rings, right? That kind of terrain.
We've remained in touch with a lot of those guys, especially Travis Osborne, who was the medic, the Green Beret medic.
A lot of them guys, and the Rangers, the Green Beret, there's a hodgepodge, that.
Mm-hmm.
And to see their pictures that they've posted, actually, Marcus did a review with the Green Beret team.
Oh yeah, first time since
it was like 361 or something like that. Right?
I don't remember, but it was.
I can't remember
It's right there, behind you on that wall up there. Who brought me in? It was all the recce guys
on that paddle.
So it was the first time. It was the first time that they had done that.
Yeah,
auditorium kind of deal.
You know what they
good
told,
to be in there to see
what they
that.
told us when they got there, right? Is we had to secure you, obviously, and the ODA was the first ones there, right? And what they told us was it was like one SF guy with 20 Afghan skinny guys, like the Montagnards, in Vietnam. But I think it was the whole ODA.
What's an ODA?
Operational Detachment Alpha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the A-Team, remember from the TV show?
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Was it the whole ODA?
They were there.
Yeah.
I was being held captive the night before that storm rolled in. They got their asses whooped on that mountain through that storm. When they came down in, because I was getting carried up the mountain and they were coming down it. And I picked my head up and looked down. They're beat to death. I felt sorry for them, and I'd had my ass whipped for the last whole week.
Oh man!
When I was so happy to see them, man.
I tell you, the thing about that mission, I still say it's almost like a piece of art for me, because the fires mission and the coordination of the 60 and us, because as they came out, I came back in to deliver another 18 Rangers.
That's right.
And
no one knows about that.
So I sat down with the A-10s and the AC-130s, right? Because you always have trouble with the fires platforms. They don't know what you want, right? But I sat down with my map and the imagery, and I said, here's the deal, guys. Here's the key locations that I can't do anything. I'm defenseless, and the 60 definitely is. I need you to either, suppress it, or I need you to do a diversion that's so big, no one can help but look, right? So we did this, like the last round in the air for the 105 was at 40 seconds out for the 60, right? So he's like, 40 seconds, like last round in the air. and it hit, and then he comes in, and then they shifted behind him while he's doing stuff, and then the A-10s drop some 500-pounders on the ridgeline, and then he calls out, they shift fire again, he comes out, they hit out behind, and then I come in, and they did the same thing for me, and it was really amazing.
At the same time,
I get
don't they
goosebumps.
have like
Awesome.
Navy fighter pilots going overboard, like trying to connect the beacon, or was that before?
There was well, I can tell you, so here we are, especially in the very, very early stages, right? Because we still hadn't found a lot of the KIAs. And I said, look, if we see a strobe or we get a radio call, we will go get them, right? So, and they were all over the valley, and not just in that valley, the next one over, right? So they'd pillage the air crew radios, so you had all these IR strobes and all this other stuff. And the crew chiefs, I like to say sometimes they see things that aren't there, and I hate to say it that way, but sometimes they'll see, because we used to have signal lights, right? You'd fly down a valley, and the Taliban didn't have radios, but they had lights, right? And they would blink the lights as you went by, and on the other side of the valley, they got a heavy machine gun, and they just follow the lights until you're in the engagement zone. They just shoot where you should be, right? And so sometimes they would see a car going up a switchback, so you see the lights, then you don't. And you see the lights, then you don't. And they'd say, oh, we're getting, light signals, I'm like, that's the thing. So I fly over this where they see the strobe is, and I don't see it, and I store it in the computer. You have a little button, right? It's stored. But I don't see anything. I'm like, all right, let me go back, right? So we go back to base. We do our normal, put the aircraft to bed, do our debrief, get ready for tomorrow. And I don't tell anybody because I don't think it's a thing, right? So I'm in bed, and I'm like, I can't go to sleep. What if that's somebody, right? So I had a guy, I couldn't drive to the airfield, right? You had to have a special license to drive on Bagram. So he drives me down there, I pull the coordinates up, give him the N2 and the intel guys, and they sent an SF team there. There was an IR strobe, there was a radio with a beacon on, and it was an ambush. There was Taliban behind like a little waterfall with RPGs. Had I seen it and gone to land, they'd have blown us out of the sky. And so sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's the hardest 2 weeks of flying I ever did.
You ever wake up feeling like you didn't get any sleep? Well, that was me for years. Always on the go and never really finding the comfort that I needed. But then one night, everything changed whenever I found GhostBed. GhostBed's patented cooling technology and perfectly balanced support have really transformed my nights. I'm sleeping better, I'm feeling better when I wake up, and even when a tropical storm knocked out all of the power in Houston this summer, our house turned into a sauna. And while all my roommates were sweating it out, not being able to sleep, I was still sleeping cool and comfortable all night long, thanks to my GhostBed's cooling technology. It's been a total game changer for my sleep, and it's definitely come in clutch. So if you're tired of restless nights and waking up like you just didn't sleep at all, well, it's time to go check out GhostBed. Trust me, it is a game changer and will come in handy. Go visit ghostbed.com/TNQ, and don't forget to use our code TNQ to save 50% off site-wide. Your best sleep is just one click away.
I had some real challenges in the beginning, with the horse soldier infill and such, and that's all. It's all
you're busy, man.
Thing. Yeah.
I didn't exactly leave y'all a straight trail either.
No.
I was all over the place. When I lost that strobe, when I fell that one time, but I wasn't thinking about that.
No.
That never even crossed my mind that you guys would fall into that thing.
Yeah. Well, there was, like I said, there was,
It's a bunch of them.
eight air crew plus the SEALs. I mean, it's, there was strobes and beacons everywhere. The A-10s, the Sandies were flying around during the day while we were sleeping. And they were, had the ISO preps out, and they were asking questions, and, the Taliban had those radios, and they'd key up the mic, and they'd sort of answer, but not really, and they'd burn that question. And then, we were going back to, I'm not sure which unit we went to and asked for questions like, what would, so-and-so I think it was Axelson maybe. It's like what would only he know that we could ask? It was like something out of Bat 21, the movie with was it Gene Hackman?
Gene Hackman.
Yeah. So it was kind of like that. And they were dropping. I don't know if you know, they were dropping what they call survivor pods.
Yeah.
So they've got batteries and water and radio and
cell phones. There's all kinds of stuff.
They just drop them all over the place so that the Taliban's running around with a smartphone now.
The kids would come in with those boxes, the empty packages, beat the mess. Taliban would whip the kids to get that from them before it could get to me. I only got a couple of those packages.
Well, the cool thing is we're both here.
Yes.
You guys got,
my gosh.
got us out of there.
That just hearing, we've been blessed to be able to meet so many people that had a role in Red Wing, whether it was beforehand planning or rescue, or I'm trying to think of the guy. Zero, I think, was his call sign.
Yeah, Wookie.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He did a fighter pilot, right?
Yeah. A-10s and
there was
Spectres all
so
over.
many different aircraft, and even the guys on foot. There was so many different
It's such a small
people.
world. I the other day I got a ride. I flew the C-17 simulator up. We have an Air National Guard base there, and I'm 50 miles north of New York City, right? We're at West Point. And so I'm flying with this guy, and he brings in this colonel who flew B-52s during Operation Anaconda. And he actually was on a bomb run that got me turned around, which is a whole series of events that led to us going to the top of the mountain. And he was part of that.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, he goes, it was a mess. The whole battle, there was no coordination. It was all coming out of I don't know, what was it, Masira or wherever the hell they were, and there was nobody in theater actually controlling that stuff. It was all outside. But it was so funny to listen to him. And then my son, both my sons were in the military. My youngest son was a Night Stalker Flight Engineer in 47s. And
What do you mean was? How old?
Oh, he got
You
out.
don't look that old.
No, I'm 60. But he did 8 years and got out.
Oh, nice.
And then my oldest son is a Navy F18 wizzo, the backseater.
Oh, yeah.
He's like Goose. And his very first deployment, so he did 3 deployments overseas. And his first one, they went over Afghanistan, and his front seater had been an F-14 pilot that dropped bombs on Takur Ghar. And he's like, hey, that's where your dad got shot down. I'm like, what? He's like, yep, this is the whale, this is Takur Ghar. He's pointing, he take pictures, he sent it back to me. He's like, hey, Dad, this looked familiar. I'm like, where'd you get this? And he's like,
my gosh.
my front seater was there in the battle.
Those 14s were the sexiest things, I thought, man.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's crazy. You've had
You had a great career.
Quite a career.
I did, and I did 17 years with the Night Stalkers. So that's about 10 years of deployments. And, I just seemed to be involved. I was at Tora Bora, when we chased bin Laden. Sometimes,
going, man.
Sometimes it gets
Yeah.
confusing, right? So I did.
Most people don't get that. They get like 1 or 2 deals.
Right. Well, I did, right. And so here's the funny thing, right? So in the very beginning, I was the chief pilot, the SIP, the chief pilot of B Company 2nd Battalion, which is who went to TF Dagger. But like a week before 9/11 happened, I got pulled out of that position and promoted to the battalion SIP. So I'm now the battalion chief pilot, right? And I'm across the street, as we like to say. And so now I'm no longer in a line company, and we're down in Camp Beauregard, Louisiana. We're actually putting 5th group guys, a Merops team, right? So they're in Zodiacs. We put them out the back of a Chinook. They're linking up with the SBU guys out of Redstone, and then they go do their thing. So the next morning, 9/11 happens. We drive back because nothing can fly, right? It's just fighters, helicopters, nothing. You can't fly. And so I'm with the battalion commander. We get up there, and then we drive down to Tampa, and we plan America's response, essentially, right? Which at the time is a bombing campaign. There's no talk of, Green Berets and UW and all that stuff. We're just going to go bomb the hell out of them, right, and try to get to bin Laden. And so we end up overseas. And because I'm no longer the chief pilot of that company, now I'm attached to them because they have to have 2 flight leads because there's 2 flights of 2. And my buddy Arlo, he replaces me, and he gets the honor of being the first to go in, right? So he's going to take ODA 555, triple nickel. He's going to take them in the Panjshir Valley, and I'm going to take 595, later known as Horse Soldiers, to General Dostum at Mazar-i Sharif. But you remember they had a guy in charge of the Northern Alliance called Massoud, right? He was assassinated like the day before 9/11
by the
Al-Qaeda,
right? By the camera thing, right?
Yep, and it was because he would have been a good partner with the Northern Alliance, right? So they assassinated him before 9/11, thinking we don't have anybody to fight with, right? So his number 2 guy is a guy named Fahim Khan, and he's an asshole. Nobody likes him, but he's in charge. And General Dostum and he don't get along, right? And so Fahim says, if I don't get my Green Berets first, I'm going to attack Dostum, and you can screw your alliance. So Arlo's got to take his guys in. He's Razor 01 and 02, and he takes 04 with him, right? It's my wingman. And so off they go. They run into weather. They turn back. Can't get in, right? They're going to 25,000 feet, right, on oxygen, the whole deal. So now it means I don't get to go tomorrow night. I've now got to wait for them to go, right? And the whole time I'm thinking, he's going to get in, and I'm not ever going to get a shot, and I'm going to hear about it for 20 years, And he goes, the next night, same weather, turns around. So the next day, in the planning area, there's a major. He's like the day guy, the battle captain, if you will. But he's a major. And he answers the phone. We're all asleep. Hello, Task Force Dagger Planning, and he's like, please hold for the secretary. He's like, secretary? This is Donald Rumsfeld. Who am I talking to? Where's Mulholland? Right, who was our commander. And he's like, you tell him you get those teams in tonight. You get, the training, the money, the equipment, you do it. I don't want to hear any excuses, and hang up. So now we get up that morning, or that afternoon, if you will, and everything has changed. Now we're all going. I'm going to go single shift.
It's different when they call in.
Oh, yeah. And so I just had to be like 30 minutes behind him. So he goes, does his thing, and I go just a single Chinook and 2 DAPs. And the problem is the DAPs can't fly in the same mountains as I can, so they can go most of the way. And I'd been reading a book on World War II on the way over to Afghanistan about the 8th Air Force and the daylight bombing, and how the fighters would go just so far, and then they couldn't go the rest of the way, and they turned back, right? And then the bombers had to go over Germany by themselves. That's kind of what it was like for us. The DAPs could stay most of the way.
Come on, like the Red Tails.
Yeah. But the DAP, they just didn't have the power. They didn't have the radar. These guys sucked in close behind me, so we're using the terrain following radar. It's like a little video game. And we're flying through the dunes, can't see out the window, and the DAPs are sucked up tight on me. And what they can see through their night vision goggles is the glow of my 2 engines, right? So as the engines get brighter, the glow, it means I'm climbing. So they match the climb. If they got smaller, it means I'm descending, and they do this, right? In the meantime, it's hard to not run into each other, and they're doing it, right? And then I'm like, man, these guys got balls. And, we say that every aircraft munition, any aircraft munition, has a probable kill ratio. So we say a surface-to-air missile has a PK of 75%, meaning if it's fired at you, it has a 75% chance of killing you. And we say that the ground has a 100% PK, right? So we're going to fly into these mountains, and these guys can't see anything but the glow of my engine. They turn around, and so the colonel's in my jump seat. That's how important this is. And he goes, what do you think, Al? I said, sir, I think we just TF, which is the radar. Never been done before in real life, ever. We've never been allowed to do it because in order to do it in training, you had to have a 2-star general. The USASOC commander had to approve it. But in order to do it, you had to be on a military training route in the FAA airspace. And you had weather bad enough to, you know what I mean? So you could do the simulator, or you could fly with one pilot would flip his goggles up on a dark night, that sort of simulator, but the other pilot could still see. So there's not that stress of nobody can see. And here we are doing it for the first time.
Got to be somebody goes first.
And the worst part is the reason it was so risky, if you will, is because it's a series of computers, that do their thing. And every once in a while, the damn things would reboot for no reason, right? Or lock up.
Oh my God.
And then you've got to
freeze up.
Like
you got to figure it out, right? And that happened to us. The very first turn we made into the mountains, we got what's called a full climb command because there was a mountain about 10 miles away that we couldn't climb over. Like it was too tall for the aircraft. It knows how strong it is. And we had to get through that,
Oh my
so.
gosh.
Then you got to keep everybody calm, right? And we've been watching a movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou with George Clooney.
So good.
So there's
great.
a scene where they're in trouble and he just goes, "Damn, we're in a tight spot.
We're in a tight spot,
So
boys.
everybody's all
Yeah. In that barn.
we're about to die," and the guys are like, "What do you think, sir?" And I'm like, "Damn, we're in a tight spot."
Holy shit! Did you throw that out? That's so good, man. When we told you, you think we watch a lot of movies? These suckers right here watch a bunch.
Oh, let me tell you,
Did he pick that up?
Yeah, my co-pilot.
So good.
And the what's funny is we were in Kandahar a couple years later, and we were working with SEAL Team 1, I think, and we had a aircraft break, and we had minimum force. We said was 3 Chinooks, and we had 5, right? So 1 broke. Go to the spare broke. Now we're down to min force, and then that one breaks, and it's like, we're gonna have to wait, guys. They'll fix it, right? It'll be about 30 minutes, right? So the SEALs are giving me a hard time. Hey, we were just watching Firebirds, which is like the worst Army aviation movie ever. And sorry, Nicolas Cage, but they're giving
I really
us
like
crap.
that movie, actually.
Man.
Dude, Nick Cage, I really liked that
Oh,
movie.
they're the greatest.
It was corny as hell, man, but I freaking dug it.
Army aviators.
When he's
hate
at the
it.
bag on the
Yeah. Army aviators hate it, but the SEALs were giving me no,
Of course.
grief, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I was watching G.I. Jane." You're like, "Screw you."
Hey, at least we got Demi out of the deal, right?
Yeah, I got Nick Cage.
We got Demi.
Oh my gosh.
Package deal with Bruce.
Right.
So something that you haven't explained on this is that this whole time when you're flying, you're actually on night vision goggles.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No, I got about 3,500, maybe 4,000 hours of night vision time, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
Oh my
But
gosh.
That's a whole lot, actually.
Yeah, I was visiting Fort Rucker one time, with my peers, if you will, and we were out at lunch, and they go, "Oh, how many goggle hours you got?" I said, "I don't know, about 2,500 at the time." And they're like, "No, not total time, NVG time." I said, "I do. I got closer to 4,000 hours of total time." And they're like, "What? Holy crap!" And that was early in the war, and,
Wow.
and we fly everything at night. So
Some guys now they got some staggering numbers, right?
and there are guys. I left. One of the toughest things I had to do was, we were talking about Anaconda, and I didn't really go into too much detail on that, but I ended up at Fob Gardez, right? So Razor 04 comes in to get me, brings me and the SEALs back there. They reconfigure, and he goes back to the top of the mountain.
So when you crash, are you actually on the ground?
Yeah.
Okay. I know this sounds like a stupid question, but give us that
Okay.
story.
So the gist of it is we're going to take the Anaconda is a conventional operation, much like Red Wings, right? There's no soft component to this. But the planners realized that Zawahiri and bin Laden are supposed to be there, and they're afraid they'll flee. So what they do is they say, you know what? If we put special forces teams on all of the key terrain, looking at the high-speed avenues of approach or departure, if you will, they can call for fire if anybody tries to flee, right? So that's all well and good. So Razor 01 and 02 actually go in and they start infilling these guys a couple nights before. But there's been a weather issue, right? So Anaconda gets pushed, I think, 2 weeks. And of course, we're very chivalrous people, we Americans, and we run around telling everybody, hey, by the way, don't be here in 2 weeks, to like the Red Cross, Red Crescent, UN, because big operation coming in this valley. Don't be here, right? And so the enemy knows. And the Soviets had done a big operation there. And this terrain feature called the Whale was this big, from the air, it looked like a whale in the water. And it had all these fighting positions in it that were stone, right? You drop bombs on it, they just go down inside.
It doesn't matter.
Pop back
Didn't
up,
even touch
right?
it.
And so, every landing zone, potential landing zone, has already been zeroed in against the Soviets. So they had range cards, if you will. You sit down and go, okay, if I put a mortar here, I can dial it, this way, and I got a good chance of hitting on the first shot, right? And they did not get any helicopters at the beginning, but they did keep the troops' heads down. They couldn't move. So they actually were looking for a way to withdraw from the infill of Anaconda. And then someone said, if we could just get a team on top of this mountain right here, Takur Ghar, they'll have a view of everything. And they'll be able to, just drop bombs and save the day. Well, we don't have any more people to do that, right? All the special ops teams are in. And they said, wait a minute. Razor 03 and 04, and we were the HVT guys. So if bin Laden did show his head, I was supposed to take the SEALs and go schwack him. Well, he's not there, obviously. So now I go down to Gardez and I get with Slavinsky, right? He's the lead of the recce element for the DevGru team.
Great dude, Britt.
He's a good guy, yeah. And we keep in touch. And so we're supposed to take him to the base of Takur Ghar in the dark. He's going to walk to the top, and in daylight, they're going to start dropping bombs, right? Except, I talked to you earlier about the bomb runs that would come in, right? So the B-52 strikes would come in. I'd be on my way in, and we have 2 aircraft. And what we're going to do is Razor 3, me, is going to go to the base at Takur Ghar, and 04 is going to go over in this other area and drop off another team. And then we're going to join up again, right? And what I tell him is, all right, when you get to the rejoin point, start your clock. Give it 15 minutes, and if I'm a no-show, you try one call on the radio and you leave because you have no idea where I am, right? And you don't have enough gas to even get home, and you got to get the aircraft back so it can get back in the fight. So that's what's happening. And we get turned around a couple times because of the B-52 strikes. And eventually I don't have enough gas to do the mission and get home. So I shut down the aircraft so I'm not burning fuel anymore. And then it's time to go. All right, time to go, right? So we start the aircraft up, and we have a malfunction on one of the engines. It has what we call a hot start. Like too much fuel gets into the combustion chamber, and 20-foot flame comes out the back. Right? Basically melts the engine. So I can't take the guys in like that, right? So I call back to the rear, and I say, hey, I'm down for maintenance. Can you send me a spare? Well, Razor 1 and 02, who just finished putting the last of the teams in, is just now getting back to Bagram. So he gasses up, he comes down, and what we decide to do in the interest of time is we're going to do a front end bump. So just the pilots. The crew chiefs are going to stay where they are. The pilots just get out and do their thing. And while this is happening, it's a 40-minute flight to get down there, right? And Slab says, Al, I'm not going to have time to walk up the hill in night. Can you take me to the top? And I'm like, dude, I haven't seen any imagery up there. I have no idea if I even have a place to land. He goes, yeah, we've seen some imagery. You should be able to get up there. It's like, all right. So, and he actually asked to roll the mission 24 hours, and he was told no. It's too important. You got to get up there. So anyway, Razor 1 and 2 come. We swap out. They got a maintenance pilot to fly my broken aircraft back to Bagram so they can fix it. And I now have 2 fresh aircraft that used to be Razor 1 and 02. Now they're 3 and 4. So we take off, we split off, we do our thing, except now I got to go to the top of the hill. We get up there, it's snow-covered, big area, and the ramp comes down. Now back then, team leader couldn't just plug his pelter into the aircraft. You had to take off your ground guy headset and put on an aircraft headset, plug into the aircraft so you can talk to the pilots. In the meantime, you can't talk to your guys. So we had a plexiglass light board, right? It's a chem light with masking tape on the back, and you write on it with a grease pencil. And they could pass stuff back and forth. And that's how they, it's like Vietnam stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And that's all changed now. But this was a factor in what happened that night. So Slab's like, okay, we're taking the LZ, and he takes his aircraft headset off, and about that time, the crew chief on the left on the door gun says, "Sir, we got a guy popped up 10 o'clock. Is he armed?" He said, "I don't know. He popped back down." Unfortunately, the day before, the Air Force had a fratricide. The AC-130 killed a guy named Harriman, who was a warrant officer in one of the groups, and the main force never came because the Afghans saw Harriman get killed by the Air Force, and they turned and ran. Like, oh my God, they didn't know it was the Air Force. They thought it was the Taliban. So that changed the rules of engagement. If that hadn't happened, my door gunner would have killed that guy on the spot. Wrong place, right time, kind of thing. And a minigun, is electric. It's a 6-barrel Gatling gun, shoots 4,000 rounds a minute, right?
Coolest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, so instead of tut, it's like, rap. But they are, at the time, AC powered, right? This is important. So, all right, this guy pops up. I go, hey, wait, get Slab back on the radio. And then we see a Dishka off to the right. So it's a 14.5 millimeter anti-aircraft machine gun on a tripod, unmanned. and there's a donkey right next to it, tied to a tree. And I'm like, hey, we got somebody up here. There's a guy over here. You got a donkey, you got a gun. He's like, okay, got it. We're going. So he's in the middle of transitioning again. An RPG.
That's what happens.
Flies in through the aircraft. Had it been, a couple feet to the front, it would have got me. I mean, personally killed me, and we wouldn't have gone anywhere. A little bit more to the aft, and it would have hit the fuel tank. Probably would have exploded, and we would have stayed there. So they hit like right through it. It went through the ammo can, through the aircraft. The doors are open, right, because you get the guns out. So there's no overpressure. So everybody's kind of like, but they aren't dead.
Yeah,
right?
dude, that's and that thing go off, or did it just fly
it
straight
went
through?
off.
Okay,
I got a ruptured eardrum from it.
Yeah. Talk about some luck, man.
But the problem is it hit. There's 3 electrical systems in a Chinook, right, and they are separated. There's one on one side and there's 2 on the other, and they're widely separated so that they can't be damaged all at the same time. Well, you send an RPG through the ammo can and it blows up inside, and you start peppering it with machine gun fire, and all 3 electrical systems went out like that. So the aircraft will keep running, like the engines. They run on fuel, but there's nothing in the cockpit. The guns are no longer working, so we got no defensive armament.
What about the avionics?
Nothing.
No.
You can hear like your computer, your desktop computer. You have a fan keeping it cool, and you can hear that fan.
Yeah.
You can hear them spooling down. So it's like, and it's all dark. I'm like, oh man. And now, oh my God, are the seals on or off? And if they're off, do they want to get on? Right? We never discuss that, which is normally something you discuss. And then finally, the crew chief in the very back is like, we're taking fire in the cabin. Get out of here, So we go to take off, and as we rotate out, Neil falls out the back. And the little crew chief in the back, a guy named Petey, a little Filipino guy, he grabs onto him and gets pulled out with him, right? So Neil's got one of those big giant rucksacks, right? Because they're going to be there for a couple of days in the winter. And Petey is on a gunner's tether, right? A little canvas strap, maybe 6 feet long. So he goes at the back. He's dangling from the back. Neil falls about 12 feet to the hip-deep snow. And in the meantime, I think I've lost an engine, because without electrical systems, the engines are operating in like a backup mode, which isn't as good. And so as I picked up, you could feel and hear the rotors kind of brrr. I'm like, we lost an engine. So I dived down the hill, much like I did at the Red Wings thing, where I said when the rotors drooped, I just dove down and kind of regained the RPM. In the meantime, the 2 gunners up front finally kind of can talk, like they got their act together, and like, sir, the engine's running, you can level off. I'm like, okay. And they're like, hey, and by the way, we lost a guy on the LZ. I'm like, what do you mean we lost a guy on the LZ? Give me a head count, right? They watched him go out. They don't need to count, right? But I'm in denial. I'm like, give me a head count and test fire the guns.
But did you jump up that mountain with Petey hanging out of the back of the tail?
Yeah.
Where's he at now?
So he's 4 or 5 feet below the aircraft on the tail. And we are diving. I'm doing about 150. Trying
with
to
him dragging behind the bird.
His toes are tickling the trees, right? Because the Dishka is now firing at us.
Terrifying.
This is the type of stuff that happens to us. Nobody talks about.
Right. So the Dishka is shooting at us now, right? And as we level off, the crew chief that's in the back right has an M60 machine gun, right? They're 240s now, but they were 60s back then. So he's returning fire. And then he looks over and he sees that the strap is going out. And he's like, pulls him up. And then he's like, all right, we're good back here.
Crap in my pants, dude.
Let me tell you, I probably still,
Is that dude still alive?
I still get, yeah.
Well, I got to meet him, dude.
So here's the thing, right? So we level off, and they finally convinced me we lost Neil. And I'm like, damn, all right, we got to go back, right? So I turned inbound. We kind of climbed back up, turned inbound, and the controls stopped moving, right? So imagine you pull the keys out of your car and the steering wheel doesn't move. That's what it's like with no hydraulics. You can't move them in a Chinook. So I'm like, guys, we're done. What do you mean we're done? I can't move the controls. We're done. As in we're going to die.
Oh my gosh.
And my co-pilot's over there trying to move the controls. He's like, maybe his work, they don't. And I remember I had a moment of clarity where I just kind of
always
looked around,
do.
and I was like,
that's when those come in.
I was like, hell, so this is what it's like when you die, right? And I looked down and I could see the battle raging below me, and the whale, the tracer fire going back and forth, explosions. It was something out of a movie. So kind of in slow motion, very surreal. And all of a sudden the controls start moving. Like I can move the controls. So there's a fill port in the back, right? So remember, nowadays car oil comes in a little bottle that you can open up, but it used to come in a can. like a quart can. Well, that's what hydraulic fluid comes in. And so he had poked a hole in it with a can opener, and he poured it in a fill port that's not much bigger than, say, 2 of these bottles. And when you do it, there's a little T-handle, and you got to pump it. And he pumped enough of it back in that I had control again. And I'm like, all right, here we go. So I turn back in, and
Who is this that did this?
so there's a guy named Dan.
But he's like a mechanic on
He's
board?
a mechanic, yep. So you got four
God, that's
crew
some
chiefs in the
redneck
back.
thinking right there, man.
Yeah. He's
And-
like, I'm not dying today.
How about that?
And he,
Have the wherewithal to do that?
and the fact that he, here he is, he pulls MPD, he's returning fire with the M60, he puts in the fluid, and then, now that I can control the aircraft again, here we go. And so now we're going to go back in, and we're on what I call long final, about a mile out, and the controls freeze again, because every little movement was squirting fluid out on the return side. So we had about 50 seconds worth of controllability per can of hydraulic fluid. I think we had 3 cans. So he just used one. And now I realize, all right, the guns don't work. If I get on the ground, we probably won't be able to take off again. We will all die. I've still got the rest of the team on board and my crew.
Yeah, time to bingo.
Sorry, Neil, but Razor 04 is going to have to come get you is what I'm thinking, right? So
Good. Yeah, no, you
they
did.
put enough fluid in, we turn again, and now I'm trying to make it to where we put the other team in, the other Mako team. And I do this rate of descent about 300 feet a minute, about 70 knots. And the idea is that if it freezes up again, maybe we'll hit straight on at a rate of descent we can survive, depending on what if it's a hill or whatever. And so we're coming down, and I'm just thinking we are dead. We're not going to make it, right? And I can't descend fast enough to get into the friendlies, and I'm afraid to do that. So I just want to let it run out. So as we get down to the bottom, now the terrain is starting to become obvious, and it's kind of undulating, little hills and stuff. And the aircraft were maybe 75 feet off the ground, and where I wanted to land was, say, over here, and the aircraft now is sliding to the right, except I can't stop it. I can't move the controls here. But in the spirit of never quit, there's a saying, never quit flying the aircraft. And I push with my feet, and the pedals work still. I have one push, and it swings me in the direction of the slide. So now at least we're straight on. And now we hit this hill at a reasonable speed, and I got one more push and the power. So I do that, and the aircraft settles about a 20 degrees left side low at about 15 degrees nose high. And I was like, oh my God, we're alive. And here's the funny thing: we had this commander. His name was Joe Gorst, right?
What's your call sign, by the way?
Back then?
Lucky?
No, we didn't. The Army doesn't do this.
You don't do that?
No, I had Cougar for a while because Cougar lost his.
Yeah.
But there's a whole story to that. But we got on the ground, and we had a commander who used to be a Delta operator. When he was at NCO,
cool.
right?
Yeah.
So then he went to flight school, and when he became our commander, he made us. We call it the Bravo Project, right? And we were, doing shoot down scenarios, the whole thing, right? And he called them the Gorst games. He'd take you somewhere, say, all right, land right here. You'd land, he'd hand you an envelope, say, somebody would be in the back that you didn't know, another pilot, and they'd fly the aircraft away, and you get this envelope of, all right, you got to walk from here to here, right? That kind of thing, E&E. And so we hit the ground, we hit the rotor brake on, and the rotor brake stops it like this. And I said, not another freaking Gorst game, and then I got out. And it was funny as I jettisoned my door, which is what we always trained to do, and I get out, and it was about a 12-foot drop. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
hit the ground. And I still had to go around the back and walk back in to make sure everybody was okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, you've got passengers
So
or customers.
lesson number one, I heard Rob O'Neill call these training scars, where you do things in training that in real life sometimes maybe you don't do, and you do them in training for particular. It could be safety, risk mitigation, whatever. But we always did the jettison the door and get out, right? Well, you've still got to come back through the cabin and make sure there's not somebody laying there. And so I had to go back inside to get everybody out, and then so we're standing out there, and now I am out of my element, right? I'm a pilot. I can shoot my gun. I've got an M4, a lot of bullets, but I don't know anything about like how you get flanked or how somebody might do something to you. And so I'm getting my coordinates, got my GPS up, And John Chapman's got his SATCOM up. He's talking to whoever he's talking to, the AFO guys, I think. And I'm running around and I'm trying to decide, should I be, running at the ready or should I just run normal? And we're at 9,000 feet. So this is kicking my ass, right? And so I finally decided I'm just going to run normal. And then I'm like, should I be on safe or semi? Safe or semi? I'm like, safe. We'll leave it on safe, right? Because we practice doing the, here. But anyway, so I come over to Slab and he's like, hey, we're all right. We got an AC-130 overhead. Chapman's talking to these guys. Razor 04 is going to come get us. At first he thought he was going to walk up to Takur Ghar. And I'm like, that's not Takur Ghar. That's Takur Ghar, 10 miles away. And he's like, well, we were only in the air like 3 minutes. I'm like, yeah, like 100 miles an hour, But
makes a difference.
Yeah.
Well,
so
and meanwhile, where's the little Filipino guy?
he's with me now.
Okay.
He's inside.
He's a passenger. Okay.
Yeah.
So they just pulled his tether up?
Yeah, just like reeling in a fish.
Okay. All right.
And he came. And so, what's funny is that guy Dan, right, the guy that had pulled him in, shot the M60 and put the hydraulic fluid in, he was in the back. And when I hit the ground, it felt really soft to me, right? He got thrown to the ground, right? Messed up his back. So like a year later, we're back in the States for something, and he's like, oh, my back. I'm like, oh, quit complaining, right? And he's like, it's your fault. My back's all messed up. I'm like, oh, no, it is not. I said, if you hadn't put the hydraulic fluid in, we'd have just died, and you wouldn't have to worry about your stinking
Way to
back.
hit him with that. That's the
And
only comeback you had. That's good.
He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you need to write that dude up for a good conduct medal. You know what I'm saying? Putting out like that.
Yeah, I think he got an air medal for that.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I was
joking.
joking about the low rank, but I mean, that's putting out.
But can a mechanic get a combat medal?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Man, if you're in
Those
combat-
guys are very important.
What's his name?
Dan. I'm not going to give his full.
Okay. Dan, we're proud of you.
Pete, man.
You did Pete
Yeah.
and Dan. Good job.
And then, so we end up, so Razor 04 comes in and gets us. And everything I do in life, I associate with movies I've seen. So everybody's headed to the aircraft. They're going to go back to Gardez, reconfigure, and go back to the top of the mountain. So I go back to my aircraft, and I look just to make sure everybody's not, we didn't leave anybody behind. And I'm running toward the aircraft, and I'm thinking about, if this were a movie, right about now, I get shot, and the crew chief's in slow motion, no!
Yeah, right.
And I go down hard, right? I tripped.
Oh my gosh.
I got the wind knocked out of me. I mean, I went down like a sack of potatoes. And they thought I got shot. And they're like, ooh.
Oh my gosh.
So I get up and I get over there. I'm like, I'm okay.
This isn't snow, right?
No, this is there's snow on the
at
mountain.
top.
But
You guys
down here
wanna
it's
go
just
back down?
sand.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's that sand like in the Gardez area. And so I get on board. I tell, the pilot in command there, a guy named Jethro. He's out of West Virginia, so that kind of gives you his accent. And he's like, all right, take you back. And he's like, I'm going to take Slab and the guys back to the top. So he goes to take them back. And I hate telling this part of the story because the AC-130 guys really were sucky back then. I had so many great experiences with them after this. But after that fratricide, they really were messed up. And he coordinated pre-assault fires. He's going to bring the team in. Except he's on long final, and that Dishka is just tearing him a new hole, and he can't get the minigun on him, because you're coming in straight. The minigun's kind of off to the side, and so he has to break off. I mean, he's turning into Swiss cheese. So he's like, "Hey, what the hell? I thought you were doing pre-assault. Oh, they were disapproved." He's like, "Look, I got to get these guys in. You've got to take out that Dishka." And I'm like, "Okay, this time we'll do it." So he comes in again, except this time he comes in low below the mountain and kind of pops up like when you're doing a GoPlat, the oil platforms. So you come in, you pop up, and you drop in, and it caught the gunner by surprise. And SEALs run out in a big fan. You can see it in the ISR video that you see on YouTube nowadays. And Razor 04 dives down like I did, using the mountain as cover, comes back to Gardez. He lands. And the number one engine, the engine on the left side, flames out. He is out of gas because remember I said we didn't have gas to do this, and so he's out. And then so he now joins me, in Fob Gardez, and all of the shooters there went to get ready for a rescue attempt. So the only people at Gardez is my 2 air crews, the OIC, who's a SEAL named Hal, not his real name, and a weather guy from the Air Force, some OGA guys that were doing the ISR stuff, and that's it, right? And so there's a convoy of Taliban headed to us, and now we've got to do this, defense of the base. And it looks like the Alamo. I don't know if you've ever been to Gardez. Mm-hmm. And so we still had 2 M60 machine guns. We had a couple of AT-4s, a bunch of grenades. We all had long guns. So we had a pretty good, we're armed pretty good. And we have General Zia's forces, Afghans outside that supposedly would protect us. But if they get to us, Hal's expecting them to overrun the guards, and they're going to come to the big doors, in which case we had an engineer from 10th Mountain who rigged the back wall with explosives, and we pointed all the vehicles that way. And the idea was, when it's obvious they were going to get through the doors, he'd blow the wall. I'd climb in the ammo pit, which was like, I don't know what the hell was in there. There was a bunch of munitions covered with a tarp, and they had set up like a satchel charge or something for me. Like, hey, you pull this ring and get in the vehicle, right? So I'm like, I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
But luckily the AC-130 did take out that convoy, and I didn't have to do that.
Gosh,
but,
that's terrifying.
But here's the thing. One of the things that was a bad thing for me is that, so I come inside, and one of the CIA guys says, listen, it's about to make the news, CNN, that 2 aircraft, 8 U.S. servicemen killed. Okay, so there's only 4 aircraft as far as my wife knows. Any of the wives know, and there's actually like 7 at that time. But operating in 2 teams of 2, I'm one of the flight leads, and I am the senior flight lead. So there's a good chance it's my flight, right, in my wife's mind. So now they're all like in Mogadishu. All the wives are at the commander's house waiting for word, and the guy hands me a sat phone, and he's like, "You better call your wife right now because they're going to think you're dead." And I was like, I can't do it, because the notification process has to play out. Because if they're all at the commander's house, if I call her, they're going to know it's not me, and by default they know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the worst.
And so, when it's all said and done, I come back, and I'm talking to my wife, and she finds out that I had an opportunity to call her.
She was pissed.
She never forgave me, right? And for the rest
you can't win that.
For the rest of the 10 years, I mean, I can't blame her, but I just couldn't. Yeah. I would do it the same again.
That's an impossible position.
But she ended up, I continued to deploy. She got addicted to prescription meds and then alcohol to supplement that, and then she spiraled to the point where she ended up drinking herself to death.
Oh no!
In like 2012, and so that's why I left the regiment. I went up to West Point, did an assignment up there. But that's.
I'm sorry that happened to you, brother.
That's
terrible. But it's one of those things that right in the book, people ask me, hey, was the book, cathartic or something? I'm like, no, not really. But it did help me put things in perspective, like timelines of when she was going down. Like Bo Bergdahl, right? There's a chapter in there I say Bergdahl tips the scales, and this is where he walked off the base. We're trying to rescue him, and I go to leave. Like, it's time for me to rotate out. My wife's expecting me back tomorrow, right? And I get to Kandahar. We're doing customs. I used to hate that, right? And I get a phone call, or there's a phone call in the customs. Hey, is there a CW5 Mack in the room? That can't be good, right? Right here. I get on there. It's the OIC at Sharana, which is where we were based out of. He's like, Al, Chad is dead. Chad is my replacement. He got there. Now he's like Sean Goggins, or David Goggins. David Goggins. Sean's a little bird guy, but he runs marathons, the whole thing. But he gets to Sharana. He does some CrossFit in the gym. He comes back to the planning area, and just closes his eyes, falls over dead. And he did it in front of the flight medic and 2 pilots that used to be Rangers that were medics. And right next door was the SRT, the Surgical Resuscitation Team. And so they bring him back, and he's alive today. He died like 4 times on the way to Bagram. But
he's just showing off now.
But now I got to come back, and I've got to do his 3 months rotation, right? So my wife's expecting me tomorrow. I've been gone a lot this year anyway, and I'm like, hey, look, Chad, as far as I know, is dead. We got to get this Bergdahl guy, and she just went totally downhill. I mean, if there was a point you could put on the calendar.
Did you have to fly the Bergdahl deal?
Yeah. Not when we got him back, and that was so we were this close to getting him a couple of times, right? We got his underwear and his socks, I'd like to say they were still warm, and we did this mission. I think we were a Red Squadron, and so we're going to go land next to this building. The imagery guy says, all right, looks like you can land here on this trail. Okay, so it's right at the front door, right? This is hostage rescue, not capture kill, right? So you can't give them any kind of heads up. And as I'm walking out the door, the imagery guy stops me again. He's like, hey, sir, you can't go there. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I reevaluated it. It's about a 30-degree slope, which is unlandable, especially in the dust. And I'm like, well, where can I land? And he points like this. He goes, this is a hill. He said it didn't show up, on the image we had. So I go to the chief, the master chief, and I'm like, hey, I can't take you to the door. It's going to have to be down here about 300 or 400 meters. He's like, Al, you got to put me at the front door. If you don't, they're going to kill him. All right, I'll figure something out, right? I don't know what I'm going to do, right? These damn SEALs, they always, Al, you just got to do whatever.
Make it happen.
Yeah, and the problem is we always did, which always raised the ante a little bit. But anyway, so we're flying about a 40-minute flight, and we round the corner around this ridge line, and the Draco's up there, and he's sparkling the LZ, right? So he's got the IR laser pointing where I'm supposed to land. And sure enough, it's near vertical, right? And now I have this epiphany. I know what I'm going to do. I take the controls. I'm like, all right, I have the controls, set the brakes. And he's like, co-pilot, so what do you mean, set the brakes? I'm like, set the brakes. I go, you guys ever hear of Sante? And the crew chief and the right door gun, Dan, he is different Dan. He's like, yeah, didn't they intentionally crash in a POW camp because there was nowhere to land? I said, yeah, you got the idea. Hang on. And
gosh.
What I did is that slope was actually a V. So it was a goat trail went up in. So I basically landed to the goat trail, and my deceleration attitude matched the slope of the hill, and we actually just flew into the ground in the dust. And it's probably the best landing I've done in my entire career.
That's some sexy shit right there, man.
Yeah, and unfortunately, his underwear was there, and we were just a little bit behind him.
My gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
When did you rotate out?
On that particular one?
No, out of the military.
Oh, 2016. Yeah. So I work in emergency services in Orange County, New York. So I was lucky enough, that last job at West Point was flying the general and the parachute team, which is where I attribute my sunny disposition coming back was because of the cadets, right? So
they help with that.
I got to know these guys. They taught me how to skydive, and I got to jump out of my own helicopter onto the West Point plane.
How cool!
Which was really, it was cool. Yeah.
That is really cool.
But those guys really, and two of those guys, the very first two I met, now fly Chinooks in the 160th.
Oh, nice!
Which is awesome.
Man.
Yeah,
way to be a role model.
Yeah, and that's what I was for them, as they call it an OR, officer representative. So you're a mentor. Tell them how to deal with their senior NCOs, how to deal with warrant officers if they're aviation.
Need them. You gotta have that.
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
So my last job was there, and we had an air show that was supposed to be done at Coney Island, right? And Mayor de Blasio wouldn't pay the overtime for the cops, so
my gosh.
you can't do the show, right?
They sure are hard on their police up there, man.
It's the F-22 Raptor, the Blue Angels, that stuff, right? So the promoter looks around for the New York media market, finds our county. We're 50 miles, so we're still within the the news you see hits New York and vice versa. And he talks to the county executive. Now, I'm not sure what you guys have in Texas, but the county executive kind of is in charge of the whole county, and then the mayors and the supervisors are in charge of the villages and the towns, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So he writes to General Caslin, who's the superintendent of West Point, says, hey, look, we got this air show. We have 61 days to plan it. Normally it takes a year. Can you help? And the general has no interest in this, so he forwards it to me and says, Chief, help him out. Do whatever you can. So I helped them pull this off, and it's a great the Army is going to move me back to Fort Bragg or Liberty, whatever it is now. And I just met my now wife, Patty, who is a bucket of sunshine. You know, if you can imagine a basket full of golden retriever puppies, that's what she's like when you take her into a room and say, "Oh, there's Patty." But so she had offered to move to Fort Bragg with me, and my sons talked me out of it.
My God.
They're like, Dad, you're going to take her out of New York. She's never left the Northeast. You're going to plop her in what, Fayetteville?
Vietnam.
And I'm like, no. I'm going to be working for the USASOC commander. So, you know, I'll be around. They're like, Dad, you're going to be out with him checking on the troops. So I declined. I retired instead. And what was funny is I met the guy that took the job. There was only 2 of us in contention for it. And the guy that took it, I met at a West Point event about 2 years later. And I said, hey, how'd you like the job? And he goes, I love it. I go, oh, any downsides? He goes, man, my wife hates it. I'm never home. I'm like, oh, boy, I dodged a bullet there. Yeah. But with all that being said, the county exec is happy that I helped him make this all happen. And he's like, hey, listen, I don't have a helicopter, but I've got a job you could do, right? So I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Emergency Services. So I run the Division of Emergency Management. So I deal with, you know, floods and storms.
Nice.
Still serving.
Yeah, just
Thank
instead
you for
of
that, man.
national service, it's you know, local stuff.
Yeah,
that's
community
so
service.
cool.
Man, good for you, bro. You gave it a great run.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's been a good time. You know, and you know, people give you the, you know, hey, thank you for your service, and I always say, well, actually, I kind of enjoyed almost all of it.
Almost all of it.
You know, I mean, and there's some of the worst parts, you know, they shaped me in other ways. You know, like for example, getting shot down in Anaconda. I like to say I was never successfully engaged again without intending for it.
Yeah.
So by that I mean, you know, I do a CASEVAC or a hot infill or a hot exfil. I know I'm going to get shot up. That's one thing, but I was never caught by surprise again.
How do people find the book?
Find the book at Amazon. You know, Razor 03 and Night Stalkers Wars. It's still selling well, which is nice. You can get it on my website if they want a personalized copy. It's a little more, but I got to charge tax and shipping and all that stuff. But you can do a link there, and you can find me on Instagram, Alan C. Mack 2015. And I'm writing a second book.
Nice.
So this thing's been out about 2 years, and like I said, it's still doing well. I called my publisher. I was supposed to have the damn thing turned in April, right? And I'm like, hey, I'm not going to make the deadline. I'm close, but I'm not there. He's like, book's still selling. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Good.
Nice. So how many years total?
So 35 years, 11 months.
Wow.
That's a good run, brother. Thank you for that, man.
That's huge. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, great job. Thanks for coming on, man.
No, thanks for having me. This is my pleasure, really.
This is the Team Never Quit podcast. So buckle up, Buttercup.